let's ask AI.
Yeah, exactly. All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Scarlett Phil and Paul Sweeney live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, streaming live on YouTube. I tell you, we were talking about how the bonuses are going to be looking pretty good this far on Wall Street. And that's even before you get some of those mega IPOs. And I think one of the biggest ones, the most anticipated ones, is this SpaceX IPO from Elon.
Is it going to go? Is it not going to go?
Yeah. And I mean, it's, boy, I can't wait to just see the financials for that company. Our next guest has some thoughts there. Eva Ados, Chief Investment Strategist at ERShares up there in Boston. Eva, thanks so much for joining us here. What do we know about SpaceX and potentially an IPO?
Well, this is potentially going to be the biggest IPO of all time. We're speaking certainly the biggest IPO in the US, but very possibly also in the planet. So we're speaking about an IPO that's going to be $1.75 trillion to $2 trillion valuation. This is an unprecedented number. And what's interesting, we have exposure in our XOVR ETF, about $230 million in our ETF. The reason why we made this our biggest weight is we think this is going to be the Magnificent Eighth, but the elite Magnificent Eighth. So we are very excited. This is going to be, it's not just one company. We're speaking about a three-engine empire. And the interesting thing is that now SpaceX is one of the few companies on the planet that has a moat. And not just one mode, because each of these three engines, the way we look at SpaceX is three engines, a three-engine empire. Each of these has a mode, and they're all interlocked. They work together, and they support each other.
Okay, there's a lot to go through and unpack there in what you said. As for your ETF XOVR, SpaceX definitely by far the biggest holding. You said about 20% of the fund's exposure. What happens to its weighting once the company does go public? Do you keep it at 20%? Because that's a pretty huge holding. And then when you combine NVIDIA to it, that's 30% of your fund right there.
Yes, so we are long-term holders. We use the VC model and we apply it to the public market. So any company we get into, we have a long-term hold into it, like a venture capitalist would do. So this is going to be a long-term hold. It's going to move to our public equity piece. We're always going to have a big weight because we believe this is perhaps one of the best companies and opportunities out there for our investors. And the way we see it is that it's going to be a conglomerate. It's going to be like going back to the days of Rockefeller and Carnegie when they owned the whole supply chain and the competitors had to use their supply chain. So when you convert your biggest competitor to your biggest customer, that is a company that's going to outpace any competition. We see this as the leader in the future. We don't see any other company, space company, competing with them in a significant way. So we have a very high conviction for the long term for this company.
What do you think Elon's going to do with Tesla? Is he going to roll Tesla up into SpaceX? Is that something SpaceX investors should be prepared for?
Good question.
Very good question. Well, we've seen everything, right? We saw the Cursor deal recently. Yesterday, we got news about the SpaceX XAI. So everything is possible. But the way so far, we have three engines. We have core SpaceX, which is responsible for 90% of all mass to orbit. That's 90%, not just the US number, it's 90% of the global mass to orbit. And then you have the very cost efficient way, actually, because you went from having in the shuttle era when they ran with $54,000 per kilogram. Now Falcon 9 it costs $2,000 to $3,000 per kilogram, and the goal is with Starship to reach about $100 per kilogram. So this is going to be the most cost efficient, by far the most effective rocket operator. Then you have the second engine right now, which is Starlink, and competes against the most bureaucratic industry, the telecom industry. We're speaking about 10 million subscribers in just 6 years. Margins of about 60%. That's again unprecedented. It's 2 to 3 times the telecom industry, and there's no issues with cables. We saw on the Baltic Sea, what happened with about 7 times cables got cut. So Starlink has leapfrogged the telecom industry, just like mobile did with the landlines. And then you have obviously the AI part, SpaceX AI now, which is going to be, we believe, the leader in AI. And the reason is when it comes to AI, LLMs are so easy to replicate, and the real moat is the infrastructure. So once you own the infrastructure around it, and with a goal to have AI data centers up in the space, then you have the whole infrastructure. You can compete with any other company, AI company, and actually the other AI companies are going to have to use your infrastructure to compete with you.
Last, Eva, before we let you go, what's your best guess as to when this company, SpaceX, will in fact come public?
We believe mid-June to late June. That is, again, it's based on rumors that we see out there. It is going to be a very significant IPO, unprecedented. This is not a normal IPO. It's the size that we mentioned. There's fundraising of about $50 to $75 billion of fundraising. And there's also a potential fast-track inclusion to the S&P 500, which is very significant because you have about 15 to 20 trillion passive money for tracking this index. So if SpaceX goes public at a valuation of about where Tesla is now, that will be a 2% of the S&P 500 index, and the 2% for the 15 to 20 trillion that we mentioned means we will have a buying pressure of about 300 to 400 billion.
Wow. All right, this is going to be fascinating to see, just in terms of a space IPO and at that size. Eva Ados, thanks so much for joining us. Eva is the Chief Investment Strategist at ERShares up there in Boston. I'll tell you, one of the big stories out there in global Wall Street really over the past 12 months has been the hyperscalers and their investment and how they're funding this investment in AI. We've seen these tech companies historically use